Hello, my name is Dale Wilhite. I'm right now in Grand Junction, Colorado. If you want to find anything about me, go to MySpace, Facebook, or Twitter. Anyhow, this is just a revelation about who the Antichrist might be, based on Scripture, and it's just a very simple thing I'm doing here. Of course, who the actual Antichrist is, the name and so forth, and when he comes and all that stuff, nobody knows. Uh, I'm just going to give you the verse, a very key verse that gives you an indication of where the Antichrist comes out of. Because most people can read this entire chapter and even the verse itself and never even suspect that that is the key verse that most scholars agree with, that gives an indication of where the Antichrist will come from. And of course, in your King James Bible, you can go to Daniel 9:26, and I'll just read you that one verse real fast. And after 62 weeks shall the Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end shall be with a flood, and unto the more desolations that are determined. Okay, the key sentence here, I guess, and the people of the prince that shall come, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. It's well known that the Romans destroyed the temple in Jerusalem in AD 70, and that's basically where the Antichrist will come from. He'll either be an Italian, or he could be Greek. Some people say he could be from the Middle East, but nonetheless, the key verse here, or the line here, and the people of the prince, meaning people from the old Roman Empire, which today would make up the EEC, or the European Economic Community, meaning he will come out of there. That doesn't necessarily mean he will be Italian, like some people say. Of course, there are some people think it would be the Pope, or the last Pope. But he will come out of that region of the world. And that is a good indication as to why Obama is not the Antichrist, like some people think. And of course, all my life I've heard it was Henry Kissinger at one time, and then it was Ronald Reagan, and so forth. And of course, some people believe that Nero was the Antichrist, because of his name and the Hebrew numbers. But nonetheless, the Antichrist will come out of Europe. And the 10 horns could be the 10-nation confederacy that he builds. Right now, I think the EEC consists of something like 19 nations. So obviously, something's got to, nine have got to disappear. There could be more now. I haven't counted recently. But he will come out of the old Roman Empire, and he'll come from the people that destroyed the temple in AD 70. So that's again, gives more evidence or credibility to the fact that there's always an outside chance that it could be the last pope. Again, I don't know. And I don't think anybody says they know for sure is a liar, because they don't know. Remember that, as it says in Revelations in chapter 6, when the Antichrist comes, he will come as a white horseman. He will come as a peacemaker, promising peace, and most of the world will follow after this beast. And for the first 3.5 years of his reign, the world will be at peace. But then he will go to Jerusalem, demand the Jews worship him as God, and that's when war breaks out throughout the world, because he will be unmasked as being a phony. It's kind of like Obama's finding out right now. He came along on a big tide that he's going to solve all our problems. Like when I lived in Telluride, Colorado, people were thinking that if they elected him, they wouldn't have to pay their gas bills anymore. He's going to give them free health care. They're never going to have to pay another dime. He's going to take care of them. They can sit around and drink coffee and cappuccino and ski and ride their bikes, in the summer, and everything was going to be dandy. Well, they're finding out the reality, it doesn't work that way. That's how the Antichrist will come. He will come making big promises. And people will buy into it, because most of the world at that time will be carnally minded, just like most Americans today are carnally minded. They can't understand anything spiritual anymore. That's why they're so easy to deceive. And that's why Obama's easy to deceive people as well. Again, all our leaders today really are Republican and Democrat, seem to be completely corrupt now. And they themselves are carnally minded as well, and they can't tell the difference between good and evil anymore. And that's the road we're headed on. But when the Antichrist comes, the world will be ripe for him to come about and promising peace, and the world will be so desperate for peace that they will gladly follow after this man. And of course, if you oppose this man, many of his followers will kill you or imprison you in the name of peace. They will say, "Oh, we must imprison this person, harass this person, or murder this person because this person stands in the way of peace. You see how it works? Just like today, many of Obama's followers, like SEIU, and they were out there beating up people. When Obama tried, at least at the beginning, tried to pass himself off as something like a peacemaker. And it's interesting to note that when the Antichrist comes, he will bring, as it says in the book of Daniel, that he, I think it's in the 11th chapter, that he will bring change. He will change times and laws. And it's interesting to note that Obama's agenda is to change things, to change the way America is today. And that's part of his transformation. And most people haven't paid much attention to that fact. But when the Antichrist comes, he will certainly do so. And it will be a bitter pill. And there will be bloodshed all over the world. And so, after his first 3.5 years in which the world was at peace, he demands the Jews worship him as God. And war breaks out throughout the world. Of course, that makes him the Red Horseman. He will turn into the Black Horseman, and that will bring disease, pestilence, and massive famine. And if you read about the Black Horseman, you can see, reference in there that only the rich can survive. Basically, do not hurt the oil in the wine. That's a reference to wealthy people may be the only ones who can really survive at that time, and maybe buy themselves, some time and keep some of their wealth. And then, of course, comes Armageddon, 1,000-year reign of Christ, and then another war, and then that's pretty much except for the Great White Throne Judgment. And at the Great White Throne Judgment, that's where all the unbelievers, all the lost, from the beginning of time to the end of the millennium, and that last battle will stand. So you can look this up yourself. If you got an internet, if you got a computer, obviously you can look these things up and study yourself and come up to your own conclusion. You'll find differences, and people believe, well, he could come out of the Middle East. Well, part of the Roman Empire was the Middle East, so yeah, he could be Iraqi or Iranian. He could be Greek. He could be any of those people, but that's where he comes from, and he will come out of there. And if you're alive when these things come to pass, be very, very careful, because the Antichrist will be so slick, so convincing, and that he will even be able to deceive the people like Billy Graham, if Billy Graham were alive at the time, was alive at the time. That's how slick this guy is going to be. He's going to be very, very slick. But I also think he'll come at a time when the world is just begging for peace. I can remember back in the mid-'80s when a Filipino protester against the Marcos, I call it regime, or tyranny, was demonstrating in the streets there in Manila, and you could see a sign holding up that I would worship the devil if he could bring peace. That's what the world's going to be like when the Antichrist shows up. It's going to be right. And again, as it says in the scripture, God will send a delusion among the people that they will believe a lie. The world is going to be so corrupt, so carnally minded, that God will send a delusion, and people can't tell the difference between good and evil anymore. And whatever the Antichrist is, they'll buy it because they can't. There's no knowledge in them. There's no spiritual insight. They have the spiritual insight of a brick wall, and they're damned in this life and damned in the next life, unfortunately. Anyhow, do your own research, do your own study, and come to your own conclusion. I'm just stating what may be, but it's something that you have to research on your own if it interests you. But just beware that only a few people at that time are going to recognize who this man is, and even a lot of church leaders, very educated church leaders, will not recognize this man for who he really is when he does appear. Thank you for your time. Bye.